Sirius Minerals is developing the world's largest and highest grade deposit of polyhalite. The York Potash Project, as it's called, is based in the North Yorkshire Moors near the coastal town of Whitby. Chris Fraser is Chief Executive and he joins us now. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Sharon.
First of all, what is polyhalite?
Polyhalite is a form of fertiliser, which is a natural rock. And it is poly in its name, as it's got 4 nutrients in it: potassium, sulphur, magnesium and calcium, which are 4 of the 6 critical nutrients that all plants need to grow. So it's a natural fertiliser, multi-nutrient fertiliser in its own right.
In fact, you just recently released some more crop statistics, haven't you, in its use and application?
We've got a global agronomy program that's underway across, I think we're in about 6 countries or maybe more at the moment, and we're studying the effects of polyhalite in country on all sorts of crops. Recently released a study on maize silage, which is a growing maize for animal feed essentially, and that released some really positive results. But every month or so we have another round of results, because obviously these trials are continuing to produce. So we've tested now in lots of countries on all the main cash crops, a lot of the high value crops, and the results have been really encouraging.
Yeah, how big is the deposit that Sirius has got there on the coast in Yorkshire?
The resource we've defined so far is just under 2.7 billion tonnes. We stopped drilling a few years ago because that's all product in terms of what it is. We have a reserve which is about 250 million tonnes per annum, 250 million tonnes of reserve, which is enough to get the operation up and running for a few decades. So the rest of the drilling we can do from underground, but that whole 2.7 billion tonne resource is just from 7% of the project area, so it's a huge deposit.
What about the process of getting it out of the ground and getting it to where it has to be delivered to where it has to go? Because you're in the North Yorkshire Moors and everybody knows the area there.
Well, we've made a number of fundamental decisions in the project. So it's an underground mine for starters, so it's not an open pit mine. And the infrastructure that we're putting in place at the mine is underground as much as possible. So we've sunk head frames. The mining occurs underground. Everything that we mine is the product, so there's no waste. And that'll be hoisted up to about 360 metres below surface level, dropped on a conveyor which will be in a mining roadway which will make its way up to Teesside, come out in our granulation and storage facility there, and then go for export and also for use in the UK around the world.
So what's the visible footprint then on the surface?
Very small. Once the site is constructed, during construction we'll have temporary head frames as we're sinking, and there'll be excavated materials being used around the site, which then ultimately become part of our mitigation strategy for screening the site, so that the buildings all end up below tree level, so that once you're outside of the actual site, there's very limited is actually being able to see of the operation when we're up and running.
Yeah, I'm also interested in the offtake agreements. I know that some have already been signed, but you're obviously presumably still working on some of those.
Well, they're fundamental to the financing of a project like this. I mean, we have a huge resource and a huge reserve. We've defined that. We're going through the engineering process to validate how much it's going to cost to build and then what the operating costs are. But obviously fundamental in there with a new product like polyhalite, people want to know that you can sell it. So we've been out signing up offtake and distribution agreements around the world in North America, South America, Europe and other places in China. And those agreements are fundamental to that financing. So we have in various forms of commitment, from MOU to framework sales agreements to full binding offtake agreements, around 6 million tonnes per annum, with some options where the customers want more optionality to take more tonnes. So we've got those done now, and those we'll continue to progress and move them as we move towards the financing for construction.
What about the economics of the whole operation?
Well, it's difficult to describe, when you can get really excited about the kind of economics that come out of something like this. But to put it in really simple terms, we're designing a project now where we believe that we'll be moving to around $1 billion a year of free cash flow out of this project on relatively conservative assumptions very quickly after we've got into production. And then from there, there's a lot of upside. We then have optionality about how we expand volumes and how we expand and what we do with pricing strategy and what our downstream strategies are, where we've got options to add more value. But the simplicity of the operation means we've got once we're in operations, a very strong cash flow generating asset that will last for, I believe, over hundreds of years.
Yeah, okay, and what do you have to do before you get to production? Obviously there's still some things to do, but you seem like you've got a lot already in place.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the fundamental step that we're working towards now is the permissions and also finalisation of the detailed feasibility study. Those two things are happening in parallel, and they will come to conclusion similarly timeframes. The approvals and the permissions are fundamental to the final engineering and design and cost estimates, because there'll be conditions in there that have to be reflected into the detailed feasibility study. So those two things are the things that we're spending nearly all of our time on now. We've been out talking to all the major construction groups who want to come and build the deep shafts and the tunnel system, and we've been really encouraged by the response, and we're just working through detailed submissions to make sure the feasibility study we have in the middle of this year is as solid as we can have.
Yeah. Any news at all on any dates, or is it really just open-ended?
On the permission side? Well, the local authorities have given some sort of frameworks of where they're thinking, and we haven't got any firm dates agreed with them yet, but we're making good progress, and we feel like we're heading in a pathway that is a positive pathway at the moment. We would hope that in the very near future we'll be able to agree a date with both local authorities for when their committees will sit to determine the various applications. Redcar Cleveland has 2 applications that need to go to committee, one for the materials handling facility and granulation, and for the mine and the transport system. That's 2 applications. And then the North York Moors National Park, they have the mine and the transport system that goes to their committee, and we're just working towards getting that. We made that big step just the other day with the completion of the supplementary environmental information, right, which was responding to a lot of issues that came and questions that got raised, and we feel now that we've provided all that we need to and all that we can to demonstrate this project is ready for approval. Yeah,
you had about 27 million pounds on the balance sheet, I think, September when you last released.
That's right, yeah.
What about the money? What about the outlook? Where do you go? What's it going to enable you to do?
So we did a fundraising in March last year to institutions around the world that was providing us with the funding to take us through approvals and to deliver the detailed feasibility study. So we're still on track to deliver all those things.
Yeah, okay, well look, good luck with everything.
Thanks,
and keep us up to date.
Cheers.
Chris Fraser is Chief Executive of Sirius Minerals.